In the heart of Kumasi, where red dust kissed polished shoes and old mango trees watched silently as the city rushed past them, life moved fast for those who had money and painfully slow for those who did not. The city was a place where luxury cars shared pothole-filled roads with hand-pushed carts, and where glass buildings rose like proud chiefs beside old zinc-roof houses that had seen too many rainy seasons. Madam Esi Courting was known by many names in Kumasi. Some called her Iron Lady. Others whispered Witch of Adam. To her employees, she was simply Madam, a word spoken with fear and tight lips. She owned Golden Spoon Restaurant, one of the most expensive eateries in the city, where ministers ate grilled tilapia and wealthy couples laughed over glasses of imported wine. The floors shone so brightly you could see your face in them, and the smell of pepper soup and roasted meat drifted into the streets, teasing hungry stomachs. Not far from those glass doors sat Kojo Mensah. Kojo had not always been a beggar. His shoulders were broad, his beard neatly trimmed despite his worn clothes, and his eyes held a quiet intelligence that made some people uncomfortable. He slept behind a closed textile shop at night and washed his face every morning at a public tap near Kijisha Market. Life had beaten him, but it had not yet broken him. That afternoon, hunger burned inside him like hot coal. He had not eaten since the previous morning, and the smell from Golden Spoon wrapped around him cruelly. He stood slowly, adjusting his faded shirt, and walked toward the restaurant entrance. He didn't block anyone. He didn't shout. When a customer passed, he spoke softly. "Madam, please, even leftover food will help me today." Most people ignored him. Some shook their heads. One woman clicked her tongue in annoyance and walked faster. Then Madam Esi herself appeared. She stepped out wearing a gold-colored dress that hugged her body, her neck heavy with jewelry. Her perfume announced her presence before her voice did. "Why is this man still here?" she snapped at the security guard. Before anyone could answer, Kojo turned to her respectfully. "Madam, please forgive me. I am hungry. I only ask for leftover food. I won't disturb anyone." The surrounding air went quiet. A few staff members froze. Madam Esi stared at him like he was dirt on her shoe. "You beggars are all the same," she said loudly. "Lazy men who don't want to work." "Madam, I used to work," Kojo replied calmly. Life changed. That calmness irritated her more than shouting would have. "You think this is your father's house?" she barked. "Standing here to scare my customers?" She turned to a waiter holding a bucket of water used for cleaning the entrance tiles. "Give me that." Before anyone could react, she grabbed the bucket and flung the water straight onto Kojo's chest and face. Gasps erupted. Water soaked his shirt, ran down his trousers, and pooled at his feet. The cold shocked him, but what hurt more was the laughter that followed. Some customers laughed nervously. Others looked away in shame. "Get away from here!" Madam Esi shouted. "Next time, I'll call the police." Kojo stood still for a moment, water dripping from his beard. Slowly, he wiped his face and looked at her, not with anger, but with something deeper. "Madam," he said quietly, "life has a way of turning the ground beneath our feet." She scoffed. "Nonsense. Leave before I disgrace you more." Kojo nodded once and walked away, wet shoes slapping against the pavement, his dignity bruised but not destroyed. That night, as rain fell softly on Kumasi, Kojo did not sleep. Memories returned uninvited. He remembered the village of Aswofua, where his mother used to roast plantain by the roadside. He remembered his father teaching him how to save money, how to invest, how to stay humble even when success comes. He remembered the city years ago, how he had come with dreams, how betrayal by a trusted business partner had left him homeless overnight. But what Madam Esi did not know was that Kojo's fall had not erased his mind. Under the thin mattress he slept on, wrapped carefully in plastic, were documents. Land papers. Share certificates. Things he had protected even when he lost everything else. That night, he made a decision. The next morning, while Madam Esi sat in her office counting profits, A lawyer named Mr. Owusu received a call he never expected. "I'm ready," Kojo said calmly. "Begin the purchase." Kumasi woke up to the usual chaos: honking horns, traders shouting prices, radio music drifting from shops, but something invisible had shifted beneath its feet. Kojo Msa walked through the city that morning not as a beggar, but as a man with purpose. He visited a barber first. The barber stared at him through the cracked mirror. "Boss, are you sure you can pay?" Kojo smiled slightly. "Cut my hair. I will pay." When he finished, he looked like a different man. Clean, sharp, dignified. From there, he went to Mr. Owusu's office. "You're certain?" the lawyer asked again, adjusting his glasses. "Golden Spoon is expensive." Kojo nodded. "I know its debts. I know its hidden problems. And I know Madam Esi's weakness. She lives large but owes banks quietly." By afternoon, paperwork moved faster than anyone expected. A silent investor Kojo had once helped years ago returned the favor. Money flowed where respect had once been lost. Madam Esi spent that same afternoon screaming at a waitress for breaking a glass. "Do you think money grows on trees?" she shouted. The manager rushed in, pale-faced. "Madam, there are people here to see you. Tell them I'm busy. They say they're the new owners." Her laughter was loud and sharp. "New owners of what?" Golden Spoon's doors opened, and Kojo walked in. Silence swallowed the restaurant. Madam Esi's smile slowly died. "You," she scoffed. "Security." Kojo placed documents gently on the table. "No need," he said. "This restaurant belongs to me now." Her hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. Her lawyer confirmed it with a nod. The room spun. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already have," Kojo replied. He looked around at the staff. "Everyone will keep their jobs. Salaries will increase. Respect will be restored." Then he turned to Madam Esi. "As for you, you will clean this place for 1 month. Floors. Toilets. Just as you humiliated me." Tears burned her eyes. "You're wicked." Kojo shook his head. "No. I am teaching you what hunger feels like." And so began the fall of Madam Esi. She scrubbed floors as customers whispered. Some recognized her. Some laughed. Shame ate her from inside. But during those days, something else happened. Kojo met Amma, a waitress with tired eyes and a gentle smile. She had seen everything. She had felt kindness die and be reborn. Their conversations grew longer, softer. Hope began to return, not just to Kojo, but to the restaurant itself. Golden Spoon no longer felt like the same place it had been under Madam Esi's rule. The walls were still the same cream color, the tables still polished wood, but the air carried a different spirit. People laughed more freely now. Workers spoke without fear. Even the music sounded softer, less aggressive, as if the building itself had exhaled after years of holding its breath. Kojo Msa arrived early every morning. He did not sit in the owner's office all day the way Madam Esi used to. He walked through the kitchen, greeted the cooks by name, tasted the soup, and asked about their families. At first, the workers were suspicious. Years of abuse had trained them not to trust kindness. But consistency has a way of healing wounds. After weeks of seeing Kojo show up the same way every day, respect replaced fear. Amma watched all of this quietly. She had worked at Golden Spoon for 3 years, long enough to know how power could rot a person from inside. She had been shouted at for things she didn't do, forced to smile when customers insulted her, and once, she had watched Madam Esi fire a cleaner simply for asking to leave early to attend her child's funeral. That day had taught Amma never to expect mercy from people with money. Yet Kojo was different. One afternoon, while Amma was clearing tables, Kojo noticed her limping slightly. "What happened to your leg?" he asked. She hesitated. "It's nothing, sir." "Nothing usually means something," he replied gently. She finally admitted that she walked long distances because transport was expensive, and her leg had been troubling her for weeks. Kojo didn't lecture her. He simply handed her some money. "Go to the clinic after work," he said. "Health is not a luxury." Alma's eyes filled with tears. She had heard those words before, from her late father, long before city life taught her how cruel the world could be. Meanwhile, Madame Esi scrubbed floors. The woman who once commanded fear now knelt on cold tiles, her hands roughened by detergent and water. At first, she told herself it was temporary, that she would survive it and rise again. But humiliation eats pride slowly. Customers stared. Some whispered. Some laughed. A few even took photos. Each day stripped another layer of her arrogance. One afternoon, an old woman entered the restaurant and paused near Madame Esi. "Ah," the woman said softly, "so power truly changes hands." Madame Esi looked up, shame burning her face. She recognized the woman instantly. Years ago, she had chased her away for begging near the restaurant entrance. The old woman shook her head. "The ground really does turn." Those words haunted Madame Esi for days. Kojo did not enjoy watching her suffer. Revenge had satisfied its hunger quickly, but bitterness lingered if he allowed it to. He often remembered his mother's voice from a Swofua village, telling him that a man who destroys another's spirit becomes poor inside, no matter how rich his pocket grows. Still, he did not stop the punishment. Accountability mattered. Golden Spoon's new policies made waves across the city. Kojo introduced a daily affordable meal for street workers, drivers, porters, market women. He allowed homeless children to eat leftovers every evening instead of throwing them away. Slowly, the restaurant's reputation changed. It became a place not only for the rich, but for humanity. That was when trouble returned wearing an old face. One evening, Kojo received a message from a number he knew too well. "You think you've won," the message read. "But I made you once. I can destroy you again." It was Kwame Badu, the business partner who had betrayed him years ago. The man who had sold their joint property behind his back and vanished with the money, leaving Kojo bankrupt and homeless overnight. Kojo felt a familiar tightening in his chest, but fear no longer controlled him. Kwame resurfaced like a ghost, spreading rumors around Kumasi that Kojo was laundering money, that Golden Spoon's success was illegal. Bank officials began asking questions. Suppliers hesitated. Old wounds reopened. Amma noticed the change in Kojo's mood. "You're carrying something heavy," she said one evening as they closed the restaurant together. Kojo sighed. "The past doesn't like to stay buried." Amma listened as he told her everything, his rise, his fall, his years on the street, and the betrayal that had nearly broken him. When he finished, she didn't speak immediately. "You survived hunger," she said finally. "You survived humiliation. Lies will not defeat you." Her faith strengthened him. Kojo confronted Kwame openly, presenting evidence, contracts, and witnesses. The truth stood tall. Kwame's lies collapsed under their own weight, and the city saw him for who he truly was. But stress had taken its toll. One morning, Madame Esi collapsed while cleaning. Kojo was informed immediately. Without hesitation, he rushed her to the hospital. As she lay on the bed, weak and frightened, she looked at him with disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. "After everything I did to you." Kojo met her gaze calmly. "Because I don't want your suffering to define who I become." Tears slid down her face, not dramatic, not loud, but heavy with regret. For the first time in years, Madame Esi truly understood what it meant to be powerless. Madame Esi's illness slowed her punishment, but it did not erase its lesson. When she returned to Golden Spoon weeks later, her steps were quieter, her eyes lowered. The woman who once believed money made her untouchable now moved with caution, as if the world might break her if she wasn't careful. Kojo called her into his office one morning. "I'm ending your punishment early," he said. Her head snapped up. "Why?" "Because you've learned," he replied. And because keeping you on the floor forever will not heal what is broken. She sank into the chair and cried, not tears of pride, but tears of release. I forgot I was human, she said softly. I treated people like dust. Kojo nodded. Dust still rises when the wind changes. He offered her a modest management role, far from power, but close enough to responsibility. She accepted without argument. Life moved forward. Kojo and Amma grew closer in ways that surprised them both. Their love was quiet, unforced, built from shared wounds and shared hope. Amma admired Kojo's humility. Kojo admired her strength, her patience, her refusal to harden despite hardship. When Kojo finally visited Aswofua village again, Amma went with him. The village welcomed him like a son who had returned from the dead. Elders poured libation. Drums echoed through the trees. Kojo stood before his mother's grave and whispered gratitude, not for wealth, but for survival. Months later, he married Amma there. The wedding was not extravagant, but it was rich in meaning. Women danced barefoot on the earth. Men sang old songs. Children laughed without knowing why. Madame Esi attended quietly, dressed simply, sitting among ordinary guests. She watched Kojo and Amma exchange vows and felt something shift inside her. Power no longer impressed her. Kindness did. Golden Spoon became a symbol across Kumasi, not of luxury, but of transformation. Other business owners followed Kojo's example. Fair wages improved. Respect became fashionable. Kojo never forgot the day water soaked his clothes. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, Amma stood beside him outside the restaurant. "Do you ever regret forgiving her?" she asked. Kojo shook his head. "No. Forgiveness didn't weaken me. It freed me." Across the street, a hungry boy stood hesitantly near the entrance. Amma smiled. "Shall we?" Kojo nodded. The door opened. And somewhere deep within Kumasi, the ground turned once again, but this time it lifted everyone standing on it.